Hi, today we're going to learn how to install, configure and use the Visio Publisher for Confluence Atlassian Marketplace application. Visio Publisher for Confluence is designed to work in conjunction with the ModelGen for Visio add-in for Microsoft Professional Visio. And it allows Visio users to publish their Visio models as rich, interactive Confluence pages natively. So we're going to learn a few things today in this video. The first thing we're going to learn is how to install the Visio Publisher for Confluence application from the Atlassian Marketplace into our Atlassian Cloud Confluence instance. We'll then go on to configure the Confluence target space where we want to publish within ModelGen for Visio. And then we will look at how we actually publish pages into Confluence from ModelGen for Visio. And then finally, we'll look at how we can combine a number of different published models into a single Confluence page. So the first step that we need to look at is how we install Visio Publisher for Confluence. And for this, you will need administrative access within your Confluence space. So in the settings menu option in the top right-hand corner, we can click Settings, and this will take us to our settings area, and you can see under Atlassian Marketplace, Find New Apps. If I click that, we can see Search for Apps, and then all I need to do is type Visio Publisher, and we can see Visio Publisher for Confluence appears as an Atlassian Marketplace app. We can click that, and then that will provide us more detail about the Visio Publisher for Confluence application. Now, you can see here it's got Manage App here as the button on the right-hand side. That is because I've already installed the application in this Confluence Cloud instance. If you haven't installed already, you'll see Trial for Free that you should click, and that will then install the application into your own Confluence instance. If I do click Manage App, however, you will see that the Visio Publisher for Confluence application has been installed in this particular instance. And then there are some details there, the current version and so forth. If we go back to our main page within Confluence and have a look at what we're looking to achieve in the video today, we've looked at how we install Visio for Publisher Confluence. Now we need to move on to looking at how we actually configure this Confluence site as a target publishing location within the ModelGen for Visio application plugin for Visio. So for that, we need to flip from our Confluence space to Visio that we can see here. So we're looking at Visio. We can see that the ribbon bar has add-in selected, and we have the ModelGen for Visio add-in installed into this particular version of Visio Professional. And there is a separate video available that you can see that will show how you can install the ModelGen for Visio plugin into your compatible Visio instance. In order to publish a model, and we're looking at the periodic table model example that is available from the product site, we will first need to configure our our Confluence target publishing space. And in order to do that, we need to click this User Settings button in the Output File Properties. So if I click User Settings, a pop-up dialog comes up, And you can see that there are a number of configuration options here, including Confluence. You can pick any profile that you like. In this case, I click profile number 10. And then under Confluence, you can see that we have a number of different configuration settings that will need to be configured so we can publish natively to our Confluence instance. So the first piece of configuration information is the site URL of the instance of Confluence that we are publishing to. And if we flip back to our Confluence, we can see here that that is VP4C Atlassian.net. In your case, it will be your particular instance or subscription to the Atlassian Cloud. So I can just paste that into the site URL. The next piece of information that you need is the username or email address of the user that will be publishing to Confluence, and that will need to be a user that has access to write to a particular Confluence subscription and also space. And then the next field that you can see here is an API token. ModelGen for Visio makes use of the Atlassian Cloud APIs, and for that you need to generate an API token for your user. If we flip back to Confluence, you can see here create an Atlassian API token, and there is a URL here, and I have that open in this other tab here. So it's id.atlassian.com/manage profile/security/API tokens. And I can quite simply create an API token for my particular user by clicking Create API Token, giving it a name, and then creating it. Now, the token that is created is not accessible once it has been created. So it is very important that you copy that to the clipboard. So you can see here that I've copied that API token to the clipboard, and then I can go back to my Confluence instance and paste that API token into the configuration settings. So at this stage, we've configured the destination Confluence site, the user, and the API token. There are two other key pieces of information that need to be configured: the Confluence space that we'll be publishing to, and a parent page. So if we flip back to our Confluence site, we can see that in this case, our Confluence space is VP4C, and this is the key for the particular Confluence space, not its long name. So in the space key, I just type VP4C. And then finally, I need to pick a parent page where I'm going to publish to. So if I flip back to our Confluence page, you can see here I have this page called VP4C Models, which I'm going to use as a parent page for the models that I publish. And the page ID appears in the URL for this particular page. You can see here the page number is 229633, and I just need to copy that and flip back to ModelGen for Visio, and then put the parent page ID in there. At this stage, we've configured all of the key pieces of information to allow us to publish to Confluence. Just a couple of other things that we need to be sure of. The hosting needs to be set to cloud because we're publishing to the Confluence Cloud, in this case, not an on-premises server. And then the page source needs to be set to VP4C as well. Importantly, we want to save these settings so we can reuse them again. So we should enter a security password of at least 8 characters, and then we can click Save All, and we can see that that's saved our user configuration. And that means that we don't need to reconfigure these various different Confluence settings. Next time we start Visio, we can just load those from our secure configuration settings. So having done that, we can now test the configuration that we have put in place by clicking this test button. And we can see the notification here in the lower right-hand corner indicates that we've successfully found the parent page in the space. So we are now in a position where we can actually test our particular configuration. So if we just go back to what we were looking to achieve in this particular tutorial, we've configured ModelGen for Visio, we've created and configured our API token, and now we're ready to start configuring our rich interactive Confluence pages at a click of a button. So if I flip back to our Visio instance and ModelGen for Visio, we can see here the Confluence table example that is available from the product site. And quite simply, I can click Publish. And ModelGen for Visio now will publish this and actually publish it to our Visio or Confluence space that we have configured earlier. So we can flip back to our Confluence page, and we should see that the periodic table has in fact been published. So if I just refresh this page, you'll recall that we set VP4C models as our target page in terms of the parent page. And you can see that if I click there, there is a periodic table page now that has been created, and that in fact holds or contains the periodic table model from our Visio instance. And this is a fully functional MG4V model. So you have all of the ability to zoom in and zoom out using your mouse. The search functionality is there as well. So I can look at diodes, for example, and you can see there that the search functionality is working as expected. In terms of the actual page that's been published, we can actually do some editing on this page as well. So if we were to edit this particular page, what we can actually see has happened is ModelGen for Visio has published this particular page using the Visio Publisher for Confluence application, which is embedded in a standard Confluence excerpt macro. And we will describe some potential uses of that excerpt macro later. We might want to change the page width to use full page width, and we can actually configure the Visio Publisher for Confluence application. There are certain properties that can be configured. So if I click the little pencil icon here, you can see here on the right-hand side, we have the properties that can actually be configured for Visio Publisher for Confluence. So for example, I could change the frame border to be show instead of hide. And if I click publish again, that will include a frame border for me. So at this stage, what we've learned, if we just recap on what we've gone through, we have installed our Visio Publisher for Confluence application. We have configured settings within Visio so we can publish to Confluence. We have created a rich interactive Confluence page at the click of a button, and we've looked at how we change VP4C properties in the generated model. Now, the last thing that we want to look at is how we can actually make use of the excerpt include macro to combine individual models into a single Confluence page. And this is quite powerful because it allows you to build rich interactive content from underlying building blocks. So if we look at the VP4C models page, it only has periodic table currently as the only model that's been published. So if we go back to our Visio model here, we can see that we actually have a number of other models as well. For example, with this hydrogen, helium, oxygen model that just has those particular elements repeating. Now, if I publish that, and I also publish this hydrogen, helium model separately, we can flip back to Confluence, and what we'll see is that those two additional models should have been published as separate pages within Confluence. So if I just click on to refresh Confluence and I open up the parent page, VP4C models, we can now see that we have the periodic table, the hydrogen, helium, oxygen page, and the hydrogen, helium page. So we have 3 separate Visio models that have been published natively as Confluence pages, but we might want to combine this content together into a single page. And you may recall earlier I mentioned that when Visio Publisher for Confluence, when ModelGen for Visio publishes to Visio, it uses the excerpt macro. And what that allows us to do is actually include those particular models on a single page. And that can be done quite easily by editing a page other than the page where we have published our models to using ModelGen for Visio, and then just using the excerpt include macro. So if I click excerpt include, I can then look for those additional pages that I have already published. So for example, the periodic table page, I can include that. I can also include the other pages using the excerpt include macro. So for example, hydrogen, helium, oxygen, and I can preview that and save that. So if I just go back to editing that page, so I just flipped out of editing accidentally, I'll just go back there. I can type excerpt include and bring up hydrogen, helium, oxygen, for example, and include that as well, and save that. And if I publish this page now, what we actually find is it's included both of those models in this one page. Now, one of the great benefits of this approach is these are being included as excerpts. So if I do make any changes to the underlying pages and republish them, they will be updated as well. So in order to demonstrate that, we will just go back very quickly to our Visio model, and we might change, for example, the background color. We might say select this color here instead. And if I go back and republish this model, this update now will be reflected in all pages that include that model. So if I refresh this particular page here, and we scroll down, we can see that the particular periodic table has been updated with the new color scheme as well. And that's because we have included this page from the underlying page that we have via the excerpt macro. In terms of how the particular Visio model is being published to the Confluence page natively, it is actually attached as an attachment to the Confluence page. So if I click the ellipses and look at attachments and click files, what we can actually see here is the periodic table model that has been generated as a rich interactive HTML page from ModelGen for Visio has been attached to this page. And you can in fact see that there are 2 versions, indicating that we had the original version with the orange background, and then we republished that as having a turquoise background. So at that stage, if we just review what we've looked at today, we have learnt how we install the Visio Publisher for Confluence application. We have learnt how we configure ModelGen for Visio to publish to Confluence as a target site. We've seen how we can create rich interactive Confluence pages at a click of a button. We've seen how we can use VP4C properties to change generated model properties. And then we've finally seen how we can use the excerpt include macro to combine individual models into a single Confluence page. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope it has been instructive and assists you in using both ModelGen for Visio and Visio Publisher for Confluence. Thank you very much.